It has become a yearly tradition of ours to head to Colorado to take on their Via Ferratas. So we figured, why not do a new and improved version of taking on Chuck Kroger's creation, aka the Telluride Via Ferrata. As you can tell from the couple of clips that you've seen so far, if you're not a fan of heights, you're probably not going to like this video. To get to the start of our adventure, you'll be driving through the beautiful town of Telluride and continuing all the way to the end of the road. Once you see all of the cars, you'll know that you're in the right place. We were getting a little bit of a late start on this trip. We weren't able to park in the lot like we usually do, but this was Aaron and Jessica's first time taking on the Telluride Via Ferrata, and we weren't going to let something as simple as a longer walk stop us. Before you can challenge the towering cliffs of this Via Ferrata, you first need to hike up to Bridal Veil Falls. On a side note, if you have a four-wheel drive high clearance vehicle, you can drive up to the falls, but that means that you'll have to hike back up or have a shuttle car to take you all the way up to the top. This trail is breathtaking in more ways than one. While it is beautiful, the trail starts at 9,000 feet above sea level, and you'll be gaining 860 feet over the course of a mile. While it is not the most brutal trail that we've taken on, that award would go to Moapa Peak, and you can see that one by clicking in the upper corner. The elevation mixed with the gain leads to some pretty heavy breathing. As we make our way through the lush forest, here is a quick history lesson about how this Via Ferrata, or as it's otherwise known, Krogerata, came to be. Back in the 1970s, the Telluride area was home to a local climbing legend named Chuck Kroger. He had long dreamed about bringing an epic Via Ferrata to Telluride, and that's just what he did. Sadly, Chuck would not be around to see the completion of his dream because he passed away from cancer in 2006. But fellow adventurers were not going to see Chuck's legacy and hard work go to waste, and they completed the Krogerata in his honor. If you're up there listening, Chuck, thank you so much for sharing this awesome adventure with all of us. If you need to catch your breath along the way, and I know that we did, there are a couple of short side trails that will take you to beautiful waterfalls. Speaking of waterfalls, we are quickly approaching Bridal Veil Falls, which stands a very impressive 365 feet tall. As you can tell by Jessica's face, she is absolutely ecstatic about joining us for this adventure. But we were all excited to see Bridal Veil Falls because that means that the hardest parts of the approach are behind us. If you're a big Via Ferrata fan, the difficulty rating of this route will make sense to you, but if you're not, don't worry because I'll explain it. The Telluride Via Ferrata is rated a 2B. The number in the front describes the technical difficulty of the route. The number is between 1 to 5, with 1 being nothing more than an assisted walk and 5 being full-on rock climbing. The letter indicates the overall commitment of the undertaking, ranging from A, least commitment, to C, greatest commitment. For comparison, the Gold Mountain Via Ferrata in 𝐈𝐍𝐼, which you can see by clicking in the upper corner, is rated a 5+. After crossing the little plank bridge, it's time to gear up because the real adventure is about to begin. Even though the vast majority of this Via Ferrata is spent traversing, it starts off with a pretty steep vertical climb. Even though there really isn't anyone up here to stop you from doing it, it is highly recommended that you do this route from east to west. You definitely don't want to have to try to pass somebody on the main event, and if everyone goes the same direction, that won't be much of an issue. Almost immediately, the valley floor will start to drop away. This will give you some absolutely incredible views, but some people might find this slightly unsettling. Unlike many of the other Via Ferratas in Colorado, there are a lot of hiking sections on this route that have no cables. This means that you really have to watch your step because there is nothing preventing you from going over the edge. Speaking of the cables, here we are arriving at the first one. Clipping in here will help you get across a very simple yet narrow traverse, and it's also a good gauge to see how your group feels about taking on the rest of the route. If this section is too intense for you, there is no shame in that. But you should probably turn back because the rest of the route has sections that are way more intense than this. There is another option if you don't have Via Ferrata experience or gear. Our friends at Basecamp 𝐈𝐍𝐅𝐒 offer the Triple Crown package. This is where they will guide you through the Telluride, 𝐈𝐍𝐅𝐒, and Gold Mountain Via Ferratas, and you can use our coupon code for $10 off. The second cable along the route is another short one, but as you can see, it's just a little bit more intense than the first one. As always, we do our best to pack as much information as humanly possible into our videos, but we are stuck to a time constraint. So if you want more information about the Telluride Via Ferrata, you can head over to our website, livethatadventure.com. We usually do our Colorado trip somewhere between early to mid-July, so the rain showers that they get are usually quite short. But we did see this one spot that appears to be a waterfall at times. There are no cables in this section, and passing through here if it was flowing would be very sketchy, so be sure to check the weather before you attempt this. Another thing to keep in mind is that this area is very popular for rock climbing, so please be sure not to kick rocks over the edge. There is a very good chance that there are going to be climbers below you. If this is your first time being introduced to Via Ferrata, something that is extremely important on the cable sections is to always have at least one of your carabiners clipped into it. When it comes time to move your lanyards past a hanger, be sure to only unclip your carabiners one at a time. That way you always have something clipped into the cable. There was unfortunately one fatality on this route, and it was because the climber had removed both carabiners at the same time. Sometimes with the adrenaline pumping, we can see how someone may be tempted to move both lanyards at the same time, but we really want to see everyone stay safe up there. Things will be getting just a tiny bit more difficult here as we encounter our first vertical climb on rungs along this route. If you have a decent amount of Via Ferrata experience, you really shouldn't find anything along the Telluride Via Ferrata that will challenge you too much physically. But I will say that the main event, which is still coming up, will challenge quite a few people mentally. Something that is extremely important to know about this route is that it has no bailout points. So regardless of if you change your mind and decide that you don't want to do it anymore, or if the weather goes bad, you are in it to win it up here. We have been quite lucky when it comes to dodging the frequent lightning storms here in the summer. But if you don't time it right and get caught up here in one, just remember you are on a lot of exposed cliffs, holding on to metal rungs and attached to a metal cable. That's not a great combination. This didn't seem to bother Jessica though. I think that it goes without saying that footwear choice is extremely important up here. These narrow ledges are sketchy enough when you have traction. I can't imagine going across here and slipping and sliding all over the place. That traction is going to be especially important for this next section when you're climbing up this steep and slippery embankment. It doesn't have any rungs or anything to grab onto until you reach the top, but it didn't seem like it gave anyone in our group any trouble at all. That could possibly be because our entire group is made up of experienced canyoneers, so we're used to dealing with things like this. Other groups may have very different experiences up here. If you're new to this activity, you may be hearing the term Via Ferrata and thinking, boy, that doesn't sound like English, and you're right. It's actually Italian, and the term translates to the Iron Path, and its history goes back way farther than you may think. It actually traces all the way back to 1880 in the Italian Dolomites, where guides would create these routes to help their clients make ascents. We now pause this history lesson because we have officially arrived at the main event. This is by far the most intense section of this route. It will have you traversing over 500 feet above the valley floor below. While we waited for the tour group in front of us to cross, An decided that it was a good time to catch up on some beauty sleep. One of the tricky things is that the traverse wraps around the corner, so you can't see if the group in front of you is finished or not. It's always a good idea to send your strongest climbers out first to take a peek and make sure that it's clear to go. And after waiting for a little bit, it was once again time to take on the main event. This is a very interesting traverse because it's not straight across. There are some parts that drop down and other parts that rise back up. You're going to have to look down to spot those foot rungs, and let me tell you, that view is going to get your heart racing. In a day and age where there is so much overhype and clickbait, the main event here is the real deal. It's one of those times where the video just can't do it justice and you really need to experience it for yourself. It's always fun to come out here with a group that has first-timers in it like Jessica and Aaron. They were having a great time and it was really fun to see the shock and awe on their faces as they made their way across. It really took us back to the first time that we experienced this monstrous traverse. Even though probably 95% of the Telluride Via Ferrata is spent traversing, we do still highly recommend using a professional Via Ferrata lanyard. While you may not take a fall big enough out here to seriously injure yourself, this isn't the kind of place where you want to take chances and you might as well use the best gear possible. Towards the end of the traverse, there is a small vertical climb, and there's also a spot where the steel cable gets a little high. If you have shorter members in your group, it's a good idea to pair them up with someone a little bit taller just in case they can't reach the cable. Soon we could all catch our breath and be stoked knowing that we once again defeated the main event. But you don't want to start celebrating just yet because we still have quite a bit to go. One of the things that really impressed us about this route is just how long it is. We obviously weren't rushing, but if you're going to attempt this, you might want to consider bringing a headlight. We were on the course for about 6.5 hours, and if it wasn't for the fact that we got an earlier start, we might have been racing the sun towards the end. Another thing that impresses us is the great condition that the route is always in. It's hard to believe that all of this metal is out in the elements 365 days a year. We haven't spotted a single bit of rust on any of the cables, hangers, or rungs. And that is due in part to all of the maintenance that is constantly being done to this route. If you would like to help keep this Via Ferrata in such pristine shape, you can consider donating to the Via Ferrata Sustainability Fund. You can find a link to that in the description below. Even though the main event is the rock star of this route, there are still several other fun and thrilling sections like this one here. They may not have the vast views that stretch out over the entire valley, but they are just high and technical enough to be really fun. There are a couple of things that you can do to make your next attempt at a Via Ferrata successful. The first one is learn how to climb. You don't have to be some sort of competitive professional climber to enjoy this, but a lot of the moves that you might learn in a climbing gym can be very helpful out here. And that leads right into point number 2, which is to make small and accurate movements. If you're swinging your legs around wildly, missing foot rungs and things like that, you're going to be using up a lot of your energy. Using precise movements will not only conserve energy, but it'll look really cool in your buddies' videos as well. And the last tip is to let your legs do the heavy lifting. Chances are they are stronger than your arms, so let them do most of the work. This route has a really nice flow to it. It has a nearly perfect mix of intense technical sections, followed up by other sections where even though you are standing on a narrow ledge, you are getting a chance to relax and catch your breath. My only wish is that Chuck could have seen his project through to completion, because this is definitely something to be proud of. Here we are arriving at yet another fun and technical section. This one has just a little bit of overhang as you climb into a corner and then stem your way across to the other side. That is followed up with another traverse on a very narrow ledge. If after doing this Via Ferrata you are looking for more of a challenge, you have to try the Gold Mountain Via Ferrata. It has some of the hardest pitches in the country, and it's just an incredible route. While you're there, you can also check out the 𝐈𝐍𝐼 upstream route. That one is really challenging as well. You can see the video by clicking in the upper corner. It was at this point on a previous run that we ran into a guy named 𝐀𝐁𝐈𝐒, and he was setting up a slackline. It's pretty impressive when you're doing something pretty crazy and then you see someone doing something way more crazy. And it kind of puts what you're doing in perspective. Either way, we want to send huge props out to 𝐀𝐁𝐈𝐒. Keep doing what you're doing and stay safe up there. After leaving the slacklining spot, we came to what is probably one of the more technical climbs along the route. It is very short, but it has a ton of overhang to it, so it's really going to work out your core. When you mix the technical aspect with the fact that you've been on the course at this point for several hours, it all adds up for a stout little challenge. But spoiler alert, this is the last hard part of this Via Ferrata. At least physically. After finishing the overhanging traverse, you will be dropped off onto a nice wide ledge. Well, wide compared to most of what you've encountered along the way. On this ledge, there is a rock that jets out, and you either have to duck under it or swing around it.
Guy.
I just do the stunts.
It's a little low. There you go.
There we go. Nice.
And just like that, the hardest parts are now behind us. And we are just a short walk over from the last part that might possibly sketch people out just a little bit. And it is the large boulder wedged in a crack that you can see right here. Keep in mind, this is a section with no cables, so you definitely don't want to mess this part up. If you have any questions at all, I would recommend sending your stronger climbers over and then having them yank you across. It really isn't all that bad, but I'll admit, it doesn't feel great. And with that, we have officially completed the technical section of the Telluride Via Ferrata. There are a couple of cables and one more down climb left on the exit, but it is pretty much child's play compared to what we've done. There is only one exception to this, and we're going to get to that in just a second. The hike out is really beautiful as the narrow trail winds its way through the forest. There are several points where the views will stretch all the way out to the town of Telluride, as well as across the canyon where you can see remnants of old mining operations. We are officially at the last rungs of this entire Via Ferrata. This is a very simple down climb, but some of the foot rungs can be a little bit reachy for smaller climbers. If you can't seem to reach, there are also several natural features that you can use for your footing as well. After the down climb, you are just a couple of short hiking sections away from much wider trails. The trail will be curving off to the left and meeting up with a 1-lane wide dirt road. You need to make a left here and head down the hill. At the junction, you'll have a good opportunity to take off your harness and helmet if you want to. But even though this dirt road is nice and wide, it is covered in rocks that you can trip and slip on. In fact, I think we all slipped at least 5 times on the way down. It's kind of funny because this would seem like it would be by far the safest part of the Telluride Via Ferrata. While a fall here might not be completely catastrophic, it would definitely be a day ruiner to make it all the way across just to twist your ankle here. The road will be winding its way through a series of switchbacks as you drop deeper and deeper into the valley. But you need to pay attention because eventually this road becomes private property, and the only way that you'll know when to turn off of this road is when you see these 2 signs here. The first is this private property sign, and the other one is this small green trail sign. After the fork, there are a few less tripping hazards, but you definitely need to still watch your step because there are a ton of rocks. Along the way, you'll be passing more mining equipment, And if you like this kind of stuff, you should check out our video about Yankee Boy Basin. You can see that by clicking in the upper corner. After you pass this washed out area, you will be almost back to civilization. The small trail will be ending suddenly and it will drop you out onto Black Bear Pass summit. This is where you can high-five your group because you have officially finished the Telluride Via Ferrata. All we have to do at this point is make our way down a couple more switchbacks and hike back to the car. But even that can be a little bit of an adventure. At times there can be quite a bit of traffic on this road and you really need to watch out. Everything from dirt bikes to Jeeps and trucks. And you need to watch out because unlike this very nice truck here, not all of them have mastered the art of outdoor courtesy. Once you make your way back to the car, we have one more thing that we highly recommend doing if you're going to be in Telluride. And that is taking a ride on the Telluride Mountain Village gondola. It is completely free and it runs from 6:30 in the morning till midnight every day. From up here, not only will you get picturesque views of the beautiful town of Telluride and the surrounding mountains, but you'll also have the opportunity to get off at several different stops, each of which offer their own special activities. The first stop is the San Sofia station. This one is for all of the nature lovers out there. There is a restaurant up here, but the rest of what this stop has to offer is just lots of hiking and biking trails. I'm not sure exactly how much hiking or biking you will be wanting to do after you just finish the Telluride Via Ferrata, but it is really pretty up here. If you get back on going in the same direction, the next stop will be the Mountain Village station. There is a lot more to do at this stop, and as tired as we were, this was more our speed. In addition to this stop, there is a separate tram that will take you to the Market Plaza station. For some reason, we've never gone that far, we always just stop here. This is a really fun little area to explore. It is jam-packed full of restaurants and bars and stores, and it's just a fantastic way to cap off an adventurous day. In addition to all of the food and shopping, if you come up here on weekends, there's typically live music, and it's a really chill vibe up here. Definitely the opposite of the emotions that you were feeling as you made your way across the main event. One more cool thing that you can find up here is the mountain bike park. We've never taken on these trails, but it would be really fun to do it at some point. And that is going to do it for our video about the Telluride Via Ferrata. If you've done other Via Ferratas in the past, which one's your favorite? Let us know in the comments below. And for all the information about the Telluride Via Ferrata as well as other awesome Colorado adventures, head on over to livethatadventure.com.